Hello and welcome back to MDG Media. This is 2024 Copenhagen Open coverage, round 2 front 9 FPO lead card, brought to you by MDG Media. I'm Connor Wood, and with me for this fantastic event, Elias Luukkonen.
What's up, Connor? What's up, viewers? Nice to be here once again for the first Elite Series of the year in Europe. We're going to have plenty of these throughout the season, and very exciting to start it in Copenhagen, the big city. We have some potential for big gallery as well.
Fantastic excitement around this event internationally and locally. We see coming in as our leader here in round 2, Kaidi Allsalu from Estonia. Really well-rounded player, backhand, forehand, and on the green, she has it all.
And Silva Saarinen coming off from a hot streak, or a at least hot end to the streak in the US, coming up 4th in the Champions Cup major tournament.
Coming in at 3rd, Sonja Laine from Kuopio, Finland, really strong player as well. Someone we don't see as often, but she's risen to the top here in a very competitive field. Happy to have her joining us.
And Britain's Rachel Turton also having a nice stretch in the US. She was also able to place 6th in the Champions Cup. So a couple of players who have already got some success in the US this year.
And we'll kick it off here on hole number 1, a par 4 at 175 meters with OB lining the left and right the entire way. You have a mando tree about halfway up the fairway, forcing players to avoid fading left too early, where they're left with this upshot to a green with OB on all sides.
Focus on their shots.
Attackable hole 1.
Thank you. We have a sponsored from Prodigy with a great round of 58 yesterday, 8 minus, 8 below par from Keila in Estonia. Let's give a big round of applause for Kaidi Allsalu.
And you can be sure Kaidi is comfortable on this course after being the last year's champion. This one is a little bit turned over though, needs to fade back in bounds, and a nice skip off the path. That's a way to start off the tournament.
Discs from Oiti in Finland. Let's give a big round of applause for Silva Saarinen.
Silva really had a breakout season last year and is carrying that momentum here into 2024. Fantastic player, and especially on the putting green, really has a really complete game. And a great drive there, controlling that late fade.
In Finland, let's welcome Sonja Laine.
And Sonja is someone I have been practicing with a little bit in the off-season. She has done great work in the off-season, improving her form, getting some good speed on the disc, and just getting a better throwing technique. And she's going to be challenging the OB on the left, but inbounds.
Great Britain, sponsored by Prodigy. Let's welcome Rachel Turton.
Rachel as well has had a fantastic start to the 2024 season. We've seen her a lot already on this channel earlier in 2023. And she's really proving that she's one of the best in the world right now, pushing the podium in a lot of these competitive FPO fields. We go first now to Kaidi for the second shot. She pushed very straight, so has a lot of distance to the green. Gonna combat this low ceiling and try to skip up in this lush grass.
And that's pretty well done from that position. She had some good distance left. Now gonna have just the inside circle look from about 8 meters. And Silva here going inside. It's a risky line for the left side OB, but good hit there, perfectly through the gap.
Rachel as well tucked very in the left side, and with an awkward swing, that tree really looking as if she had to lean off to the side to extend her backhand throw, but good delivery to the green from an awkward stance.
And let's see, Sonja here also looking to go... I can't really tell whether she was going for the inside or the outside line. not quite committing to either. Now she's approaching for the par, should be no problem from there.
Kaidi on the green just finds the band, but a committed stroke there to the putt. We see Silva. I mentioned her strength on the green, does not shy away from these big moments, and you see it on display there, getting her first birdie and kicking off the round here.
Yeah, Silva, definitely one of the strongest putters. And talking about putting, a little bit of a mishap there from Rachel. Possibly some nerves on the first hole, being the biggest tournament of the year in Europe so far.
And speaking of, the local spectators really coming out here in Copenhagen to the Valby Park venue. The weather is beautiful this weekend. It's an incredible piece of land that is available for disc golf and really exciting event. We appreciate everyone's support. Elias, tell us about hole 2.
Hole 2, it's a hole that you really would like to birdie. A short par 4, only 121 meters. You have a couple of choices off the tee. You can go for a very aggressive Anheuser line over some of the bushes on the right side if you want to get even close to the basket of the first shot. But a lot of players are trying to throw something straight, a little bit to the right, put themselves in position for a short approach where really the only danger is the long OB, only about 5 meters behind the basket.
We see Silva off the tee, just shaping quite a low-speed disc, very straight, a lot of control and restraint for her in that shot, but really well placed to give her a straight look to the green. Kaidi with a little bit more speed out of the hand here, but just slides a touch further on that walking path, really indicating where a good shot will end.
And Sonja looking like she has grabbed a fairway driver. A little bit more aggressive and pace off for her. She's gonna have a shorter approach, pretty much open, just a low ceiling to contend with. That's a great position to be in after one.
Rachel as well, cutting that corner just a bit. We have 4 fantastic drives. Sonja taking on the most risk, but also finding the most reward there. Really pushing the distance close to the green. Silva battling these small guardians, playing the hyzer. I think she didn't really pick a choice between going over or under the branches, or was slightly in between on the height. Kaidi with a good upshot.
And the low ceiling here really coming into play. If you don't want to play over those tiny trees, so of course can be risky with the long OB, but Rachel is going to be putting there. And this one needs to slow down. And that's perfect. Sonja just outside the bullseye, going to have a nice birdie on this hole number 2.
Oh, and a fantastic bid there, but off the band, even at that long range, a bit too high. For Rachel, I think this is the recurring miss for her, is a little bit low, and I expect that we'll see her pick up the pace a bit on those putts. Kaidi, fantastic off the straddle, slightly obstructed, well done.
And Sonja as well, good birdie there. Interesting to see how Sonja, as being slightly less experienced in these lead card situations compared to the other 3, very interesting to see how she manages the pressure.
I think certainly a factor, particularly at this high-stakes Elite Series event. This is certainly a hole where you can let out some of that nervousness and try to rip a disc or two. We see here hole 3, a 267-meter par 5. A lot of players will choose on the tee shot rather to snake through the woods to the right, not necessarily as the drone flew, to try and shortcut some of that distance. They'll break into this very generous wide fairway, however quite long, where they'll want to chip away at the distance and ultimately make their way to this guarded green around these late trees. That high grass underneath them, a very common landing zone for a long look. We go to Kaidi off the tee.
And this is exactly that inside line. Just need to miss a couple of trees. And she has made it to okay position, potentially not as far as she would like off the first shot. It's a pretty long hole, so you would like your first 2 shots to be as far as possible.
Sonja, fortunate to break out into the short grass, I think. Got a little bit of a retreat connect there. And Silva slightly overturned. The nose down, not allowing her the full flight. Rachel taking the more traditional line here, or rather less common, but perhaps more intended line.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that play. Potentially not having the greatest, chance to get a lot of distance. I think the left side route is much safer as there isn't any trees in the way. Let's see Sonja here. Second shot is all about setting yourself up with a good angle to the green and getting as much distance as possible. She's going to be more towards the left, so probably going to have to throw a left to right shot on the next shot.
And Rachel, having played it wide, has all the room to try and swing in a shot, bite off as much distance as she can to try and access the green on her next one. Silva opting for just the pure standstill. Shaping that nicely with the late overstability to open up the angle. Fading to the left will give you more distance, but slightly more access.
And Kaidi also playing more towards the left with that hyzer release. All of the players can really choose what's their preferred angle to approach the green from. I believe Rachel is probably not exactly at her preferred angle, but throwing a nice forehand, unfortunately not getting through the trees. That's really what she was playing for, tried to funnel through the branches.
Silva just beating that high ceiling to snake through onto the short grass. She's on the green, left with a long look, although well within her range. She's done well to create a birdie chance for herself.
And that's a solid shot from Sonja. She will have a putt left. Let's see, Kaidi trying to fade through the branches once again. Looks like didn't quite get through perfectly.
We see what she's left with here. Fires the stepper and finds the chains. Fantastic composure. Kaidi Allsalu showing us why she is your reigning defending Copenhagen Open champion. Take a look at this. Pure.
Yeah, beautiful putt. I believe in this round number 2, it was slightly more windy in round number 1 early in the day. Of course, later in the day, the wind kind of died down. But at this point, there can still be some gusts.
Sonja giving her bid on the green, chains out the left side. We go to Silva and connecting for the birdie. You see just how confident she is on the green. She doesn't take a lot of time, has a really refined and simple looking putting stroke, and she makes it work. Well done to collect the birdie here on one of the longest holes.
And Rachel, good comebacker there. Now she's dialing in that putt, gonna be important for the rest of the round, and especially for the confidence. I feel like all of these early holes are so much about building the confidence for the rest of the round. Even if you're not scoring ideally, if you can get that confidence up, you're gonna have a good round most likely.
From top competition to the new players. From supporting women to funding new courses. PDGA Europe is much more than competition. Visit pdga.com/join and grow the sport.
Moving on to hole number 4. A lengthy par 3 requiring a driver shot thrown flat and having that nice finish at the end. The gap on this hole is pretty big. Really, you wouldn't want to miss the gap off the tee. Really, the difficult part is controlling the angle. It's pretty far down there and a slight right to left slope just before the basket is causing a lot of discs to fade out early left. And if you try to counter that early fade, there's a risk of turning it over to the right.
We see Kaidi shaping the hyzer flip through the gap. But exactly as you mentioned, Elias, fading out left a little bit early. And she is just straddling the edge of that tree line. Might have some awkward footing. We'll see Silva here looking to make the correction, but in fact turns it a bit early over to the right into high grass. Unclear if she's in bounds. We'll see the cards call.
Yeah, I hope they find that disc. The grass is very tall up there. It's only the OB the road on the right side that's playing as OB at that part of the fairway. Later on, it creeps in a little bit. As we see Rachel also turning it over a little bit after Sonja hit some early branches. Nobody really in great putting range here.
A very long hole which also requires good accuracy on the initial gap. Sonja has done well to put herself into the circle. Very manageable putt. We go to Silva from the fairway's edge. Also with a nice delivery to the elevated basket. You want this as close as you can, more so than on a normal height basket. Really eliminates some of the stress of these more dangerous putts if you can put it close.
And Kaidi just smartly laying up. No sense in running it from 20. Let's see Sonja. A nice hit on the left side, high left side. Jane's catching it well for her, and that's going to be a great par save.
Rachel as well, in for her 3. And Silva with the same. Hole 4 here in round 2, averaging 3.13, so just over its par rating. And I think you can see that the birdie is difficult to find here, but also not so many bogeys are found. A lot of chip ups and tap ins. We move to hole 5, a 106 meter par 3. This hole requires a very straight shot with a strong finish to the right at the end of its flight. A lot of players will opt for the high anhyzer backhand and then try to crash through these late trees. You have the low ceiling to contend with and very thick rough early to the right. Important that you don't get caught up in there too early, but also a very difficult hole to really fully access the green. A lot of people with a good shot will be left with a circle 2 look. We'll see Kaidi up first.
Going very far left. Not really trying to challenge the trees on the right. Rather just playing it to the fairway. A little bit surprising there. Let's see if Silva gets more aggressive here. And not really. Is that the play on this hole? Are they not trying to turn it over to the, to get to circle 2?
The players on our round 1 feature card were certainly trying to get it more turning during the flight. Significantly more rightwards movement. But I can understand very much here simply laying up for the safe 3. Anything that is too aggressive will potentially even remove par from play, even with some good distance, just how thick it is. And Rachel has done well to play what would also be considered a safe shot, but does have a long look, I think, just outside circle 2. Kaidi here off the knee.
Yeah, I think this is probably a pretty common look on this hole, not quite having a putt, but the approach being very short. It's a commonly parred hole. 81% of the field actually getting a par here.
Silva going just a touch long on her approach. Kaidi up first, however. And off the band, she will be finding her first bogey of the round. That is the punishment of game planning. A safer line, not trying to get close on the first shot. Being a little outside the comfortable range, but Silva is good for it. Rachel as well.
Yep, Silva continuing the good putting so far. And Sonja, good par there as well. Nobody really running into any trouble so far. And that's going to be the first bogey of our card from Kaidi. Not exactly the hole that you want to bogey, but as there was no birdies in the field, you're not really losing more than a 1 stroke to anybody. As we're moving to hole number 6, which offers you a couple of options. The route that the drone is flying is potentially the best route for parking the hole or getting into circle 1, but there's a lot of risk. You have some early trees, and that OB right comes into play if you take a bad kick out of any of the trees. The other route is going for a wide anhyzer on the left side. Interesting to see what's the route these players are taking.
Silva looking to shape the backhand turnover through the gap with the direct line. A soft kiss off that tree will leave her early left, likely very obstructed still to the basket. However, that fallen limb on the left side really being an obstacle for a lot of early left shots. Sonja catching the rough. She's left still with about 40 or 50 to the green.
Yeah, hard to get it clean through that gap. Even after the first gap hit, you have that late bush, and that tree as well, you know, kind of perfectly in the line of the early turning backhand. So we will see some approaches. Not the easiest approach from here. The green is pretty fast. There is no grass on the green, so the discs are sliding pretty far. And Kaidi right there, she's gonna have a difficult putt for the par.
Rachel trying to shape this putter through the gap. She also fades out a touch early and a lot of small trees left in her way, but certainly a manageable putt. We see Sonja hitting the gap purely, and a great backstop for her there.
Yep, no more than 5 meters there. That's also one thing that makes the green slightly trickier, is that you have so many trees that, you know, can get in the way of you making a nice putt from circle 1 even. For example, here, Kaidi having to shape a hyzer. Excuse me, she actually chose the straight gap, but unable to capitalize on that. She's going to be taking back-to-back bogeys.
Rachel as well, having to weave her way through these trees, just a little bit low. And Kaidi on the comebacker as well. An opportunity for our players here to snag some strokes on the leader. And Sonja off the band. You see that wind coming in from the open fairway towards her. She had that headwind push her up slightly. And Silva's par here will actually find multiple strokes on her card mates, both behind and ahead of her. Currently now tied with Kaidi at 7 under. Here we see hole 7, a 93-meter par 3 island hole. However, quite a generous island in terms of its width and depth. The only real danger here is either not making the island or sending it long past the basket. No more than 5 or so meters behind it, you'll find an OB line. So a lot of players will try to err on the side of caution, throw up to 5 to 8 meters short of the basket, and then look for their birdie putt.
Silva here going for the backhand. Feel like it's a good hole for either shot. Backhand potentially has that first leaf more in the way, and look at that nice backstop. She hit on the other side of the OB. She hit the ground on the other side of the OB, excuse me, but just stopped perfectly right there and even kicked a little bit back. And Sonja here also in the circle.
Yeah, 2 very strong shots. We'll see Rachel here also playing the backhand. She comes up just a bit low, looked to have a good forwards pushing speed, however, caught the grass a bit early. We'll see Kaidi playing more of a hyzer here, trying to get that late swing to the left. And she gets a few small skips. That lush grass, particularly on the sloped portion, will not offer too much ground play. We go first to Rachel with this long look.
And very good effort there. Even going directly towards the OB with that fade. That's going to be well done by Kaidi for the birdie.
Sonja again off the top, just a little bit high on these last few putts. Silva, fantastic. Fortunate that that backstop keeps her in, collecting a short putt for birdie. As we'll see, Sonja and Rachel clean it up. 2 birdies, 2 pars. I think playing close to the field average. Elias, talk to us about birdie stats here on hole 7.
Yeah, hole 7, pretty much the third of the field birding the hole, so it's one that you would like to get. It's averaging even under par. So that's always a sign that these top players really would love to get the birdie. Similar thing on hole number 8. 68 meters. Just a perfectly straight shot, that's all you need. You can even play the ground if you want to. You can land the disc, 10, 15, even 20 meters short and slide it up to the basket. This is only a mental hole. You need to focus and hit the gap. It's an easy shot, but if you're off your focus, it's also easy to miss it.
And Silva there, slightly late release. I think you touched on it, Elias. I really personally love this hole because it does allow the player to throw anything they want, from putter to mid-range, overstable to understable, a pure laser like Kaidi, even puring it a bit too far past the basket. It really does allow players to simply pick their favorite shot and conquer their focus, as you mentioned. Sonja with a similar looking shot to Silva. Both of them will be kicked left off the fairway, Rachel to the right.
Yeah, not quite committed by the 3 out of 4 card mates here. I feel like you can really see it in the throw. A lot of these players were a little bit tense. And that's what happens so easily when you have a tiny gap ahead of you with a very short distance. You can't really rip it through the gap. And Sonja will continue the struggle.
Honestly, a great throw from Silva there. She was pinched at a very awkward angle. Had to hit a lot of gaps even to make it that far. And she has given herself a chance to save par. We'll see if Rachel can do the same here. Nice use of the ground play. Keep it low and slide her way up into the circle.
And that's going to be Sonja just laying up for the bogey. Quite a common score on this hole. Actually, more bogeys than birdies here. Wow, that's a beautiful putt. Even with a slight bit of wind in the woods, Kaidi will, remove that double bogey with back-to-back birdies.
And Silva with a momentous par save as well. 2 fantastic putts in a row. We go to Rachel to save her 3 as well. Well done, and really impressive for Kaidi to simply shake off those bogeys. Getting a single and then double. She's already shaved 2 of the 3 away in the following 2 holes. Great strong mental game as she once again finds herself in the solo lead by 1 stroke at 9 under. Speaking of 9, we see the 9th hole, 156 meter par 4. You have this early Mando tree to the right, forcing players down this winding tunnel, bending softly right the entire way. Players will look to shape something, moving right and holding as long as they can. About 2/3 of the way up the fairway, you break out over the crest into this open basin where you find the basket tucked away at the back. A really nice collecting ground play here to funnel towards the pin.
Yeah, it's a pretty wide gap on this hole, but the angle is what makes it slightly trickier. You need to have this smooth turn to the right. Kaidi having the turn, but not as smooth as she would like, and that's going to be short, well short of the gap, and going to be a tricky second shot if she wants to get the birdie.
Rachel a little bit wide on the release, but finds the understability in time as she shapes it down the full width of the fairway. Really nicely done. And that late stability in the flight where it flattens out, it's really what you love to see here. We see from Sonja just an Anheuser release from the hand, likely a slightly more stable disc, and also really dissecting the fairway nicely there. We go to Silva.
Silva early right here, but a great looking shot out of the gap. And she's gonna be in the circle. What a nice throw. Able to shape a backhand as Kaidi is hitting the left side gap with a forehand. Beautiful angle as well, almost skipping in the basket. We're seeing some great approaches on this hole.
Yeah, really smooth delivery to the green there for Kaidi. We'll see Rachel, I think, try and match it. Going for the same left side fairway gap over stable driver. She crashes into that bush a little bit early. She'll be at an awkward stance. Slightly long range putt. Still, certainly though, a birdie look. And Sonja, really well done. Straight line to the basket.
Yeah, well done there. Staying perfectly balanced with a standstill shot. And Rachel here, not quite getting it up. We have a potential chance for a star frame, or had a chance. But now looking at very possible 3 out of 4 birdies on the card. That would be an impressive score on hole number 9, even though it's a very birdieable hole. As we saw Rachel there, a little bit pulling it to the right. After that, a good bogey putt. I feel like those are the most difficult putts after you have just shanked the last putt, to be able to have the mental fortitude to make the next one.
Would completely agree. The complete air ball into longer comebacker, when you have a putt longer than the one you previously just had, those can be tough to conquer, but she's done it well. And Kaidi as well, with a strong finish to her front 9, sitting at 10 under and 2 under through the front 9. Silva Saarinen bogey free so far with 4 birdies. Fantastic front 9 as well, just 1 stroke behind. Sonja at 4 under, Rachel at 2. Slightly slower start, but a great start to our second round, and I think the back 9 score is a little bit more friendly for our competitors. We appreciate all of your support. You can like, comment, subscribe, or check us out on Patreon to support European disc golf coverage. Elias, thanks for joining. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. It was very fun, and see you guys hopefully on the back, where we're gonna see more birdies, potentially more wind and more distance.